Alrighty, time for another video about real estate with me, Hayden. So gonna dive right into it. Still growing and developing this channel. Thank you to those of you that have watched our videos, my videos I guess, and subscribed at this point. So gonna talk a little bit about a 5% down loan today because they're really important. It's a part of the real estate purchasing process, especially that big time affects first-time home buyers, that I don't think is very well communicated in our world today. And I certainly didn't know about it, and it affected my my approach when I was buying my house, and falsely going into it and assuming that the only way I could buy a house was by paying 20% down, when the reality is that there are options out there, especially that are designed specifically to help people get into starter homes or primary residences, where you only have to put 5% down. There are also Federal Housing Administration options, FHA loans, where you only have to put 3.5% down. There are VA loans that are available to veterans and members of the military that in certain cases you don't have to put any money down. But for today's purposes, this is the 5% down conforming loan. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and give you guys a little bit of tools here at the end. So please stick around, and more great things to come. So one of the things I want to talk about right now is that it's an interesting time in today's world with regard to macro trends. We have high interest rates, higher than they've been in several years. Affordability has gone down significantly. The amount of home that you can buy with the same monthly payment has gone down significantly because rates have gone up. And that's a Federal Reserve mandate to control and sort of minimize or keep inflation at a target rate. And with inflation running as hot as it is right now, the Federal Reserve is doing what they can and what they should to keep the inflation rate down, and that means raising interest rates. That's the only thing that they have left. So it's the main lever that they're pulling, and that's affecting the affordability of housing. So while it might not necessarily make sense to buy a house right now because you would be looking at a really high payment and affordability is so much lower, it's always a good time to marshal your resources, be ready to go. And part of that means knowing what you're getting into, what's possible, what you can afford, and some things that you can work on between now and when you do want to make a home purchase that'll help increase your chances of success. So yeah, this is for people who didn't really get the opportunity, or like me, didn't have a class or a teacher or anybody who would teach me or you about these things in high school, college, anything. Shout out to YouTube for making it possible for information like this to wind up out there. But I wish I'd taken a class or had an available class option on real estate and home buying. Instead, I learned about parabolas, and it's one of my frustrations with the education system is that we're missing some of the practical personal finance and long-term wealth building strategies that are really, really critical. But that's a topic for another video, because there's go on for days about problems and challenges that we're facing in our education system, both in the United States, and there's probably challenges everywhere else. So number one thing I want to call out is a free resource that I put together. And if you want to go to haydenwheatley.com/start, I'll link it in the video description. I have a free tool. It's a very, very simple affordability calculator that uses and goes into a metric that is very important that we'll dive into in one or maybe more videos later on, called your debt to income ratio. And in effect, this is how the bank looks at you and decides how much money you're good for every month, and how they need to feel comfortable, what information they need to feel comfortable lending you a certain amount of money. It's really when the rubber hits the road. This number is incredibly impactful because it unpacks to so many things. So we'll get more into that, but the tool at haydenwheatley.com/start is a pretty valuable, at least entry-level device for you to be able to go, okay, here's where I am right now. Here's what my debt to income ratio is right now. Here's what it would need to be. Here's what I need to change. Here's what it would need to be for me to buy a house where my monthly payment is X. And there's a lot more to go from there. So I'm not going to get too long-winded on that. Instead, I'm going to talk about this 5% down loan. So they say in policy making, which is something that we need to keep in mind, that if you want something done, subsidize it. And there are certain elements of our tax code in the United States that incentivize certain activities that we like. We like it when people have children because it helps create a growing population and enough labor in our country to be able to sustain our civilization. And so one of the tax benefits of having children is that you get a dependent deduction. And if you buy a home, you get a mortgage interest deduction if you start start a business in certain cases, you can get write-offs and deductions for the cost of starting a business. Buying a home is very similar in that it's part of the American dream, right? And it's something that there are policies and structures in place to help support and encourage people to be able to get into their first home. And one of those is via a conforming loan. Conforming loans are ones that are below a certain threshold, so they only apply to starter homes. And the easiest way to do that is to type in the name of the county where you're living and conforming loan threshold. So if you were looking in Los Angeles County, you would type in Los Angeles County conforming loan threshold 2022. Or if you're living somewhere in any other state in the country, there is a conforming loan threshold that is set by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac or another governmental agency to let you know what your loan proceeds can be. And so let's take, for instance, a county where the conforming loan threshold is $400,000. What that means is that in order to get a 5% down loan, your amount that you're borrowing cannot be higher than that $400,000 amount. So the quick math on that is you take $400,000, divide it by 0.95, which is the amount of the loan. You'd be borrowing 95% of the value of the home, and you get your 49. You did that. And break out my trusty TI-89 calculator. So we got 400,000 divided by 0.95. That gets you a maximum purchase price if you wanted to only pay 5% down of $421,000, which means that you could buy a $421,000 house in that county paying only 5% down and get yourself into your first home. When I first started looking, I thought I had to pay 20% down, and I was looking at a much different type of home, different neighborhoods, different quality, different size of lot, finishes, trims, condition, everything. I thought that I couldn't afford very much. And it wasn't until deep into the process when I sat down with a real estate agent, we'll get into that later too, that I realized, hey, you know what? I can put a 5% down loan in this county and be able to afford a lot more. And that was a really, really eye-opening day for me, was being able to go back into my Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, Trulia, whichever one of those tools you use, and open up my price budget a little bit more and be able to see, oh my goodness, okay, there's a little bit more affordability here. There are challenges that come into play when you get a conforming loan, because there's going to be a higher loan balance, which means your monthly payment is going to be higher because there's just more interest and principal to pay. And on top of that, there is something called mortgage insurance, which kicks in when you pay less than 20% down, and we'll go into that too. But the real magic of a conforming loan is that it allows people who are just getting started to get a home. And it means that if you want to buy a $350,000 home, instead of it costing you $70,000 to pay 20% down, you can pay 5% down. And it'll only, that's still a lot of money, but $17,500 of down payment is a lot better than $70,000, especially when you're just trying to get on your feet, and you might be a few years out of college, might have student loans, might be working to build up your nest egg. It's really valuable to be able to not only get into a home a lot earlier, it's just valuable. It's really, really valuable to know that there's a 5% down option out there, and most people don't know that, unfortunately. And I think that's something that, at least with this video, I'm fighting to change. So hopefully, with more messaging and more information going into the future, we'll be able to get that squared away. So key takeaways: HaydenWheatley.com/start. You'll get a very, very rough affordability calculator that will let you punch in some of your own private personal numbers. It's not a Google Drive sheet or anything like that. It's your own Excel doc that you can fill out. It stays with you, and it'll allow you to look and go, okay, well, if I have this much in student loans, or I have this much in credit card debt, or I have a car loan or anything along those lines, that's some of the debt that will affect my debt to income ratio. And then on the flip side, your income, whether it's W-2 or 1099 or dividend income or another source of income, those are the numbers that you really need to unpack, because when the rubber hits the road and an underwriter is looking at you and checking all your numbers and really, really getting into the nitty gritty of your finances, those are the numbers that are really going to dictate whether or not they're going to allow you to move forward with getting a loan, getting finance, getting to the closing table, being funded, and getting across the finish line successfully to the point where you have your keys and you're moving into your home. So for now, HaydenWheatley.com/start. Conforming loan. One homework item or something I'd recommend is to look up the county that you're in and type in that county name claim conforming loan threshold 2022 or conforming loan threshold whatever year it is that we're in, because that will tell you what the maximum loan you can get paying just 5% down, and that'll allow you to know kind of what you can afford, or at least what the high level limit is of a 5% down loan. And then that'll affect your search strategy, what you look for in the market. It'll impact what neighborhoods you can look at. It'll impact what types of properties you can look at. It'll impact square footage, lot size, a whole bunch of things. And then from that, you'll have to check that against your debt to income ratio to make sure that you can afford the payment for a house like that. Because it's one thing if you're in a county that's $400,000 conforming loan limit, and you buy a house or you go under contract on a house for $421,000 and you're only paying 5% down, there can be issues if your debt to income ratio tells the bank or the lender that you can't afford the payment on that $421,000 house. So those are some of the challenges that come into play. And it's a little bit frustrating for me because I've been thinking about this stuff and I've been in this world for the last 6 years, fumbling, trying to find a way to get a home. And it wasn't until a few years ago where I was finally able to do it. And there's a lot of considerations that go into it, and finding and distilling this in ways that make it easy for you, a person who might be struggling with this or might be asking, hey, where can I get some more information from somebody who's done it recently? That's what I'm working on right now. And please stick with me. I appreciate the patience. There will be more great tools to come. We'll have better videos coming forward. Maybe some different wall art in the future, different studios, who knows, just getting started. But I firmly believe that real estate ownership in the United States of America is arguably the best way to passively build wealth by just paying your mortgage. And ask anybody who bought their home in the 80s or 90s how it's doing today on value and whether or not it was a good thing for them to do. And I'm pretty sure that most people will say that it was a very, very financially beneficial thing for them. So that's all I have for right now. More to come on the next video. Thanks again. My name is Hayden, and you can find out more at haydenwheatley.com/start. And until next time, peace.